MyCore is on a mission to be the world's most people-centric company. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the core of people. I'm your host, Nathan Bourne, and I invite you to join me as we deep dive into the personal and professional lives of our guests. We're going to learn who they are, why they exist, and what they do. We're going to hear their stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In other words, we're going to talk to some really cool people. Welcome to the MyCore podcast. Hello and welcome to the MyCore podcast. This is your host, Nathan Bourne, and I am here with the lovely Christina Messer. Hey, Christina.
Hey.
I'm super excited to have this conversation, to do this episode, to talk about all the things. You are not in the Seattle area. You are in Las Vegas, your new home.
I am a new resident of Vegas. It's wonderful.
That's exciting. So how long have you been there now? It's like just been a few weeks.
2 weeks officially, 2 full weeks in our new place.
That's amazing. And I know we met in Scottsdale, Arizona in April.
Yes.
That's crazy. So it hasn't even been 6 months.
No, it hasn't been. This whole move from the inception of it started 4 years ago.
Really?
We really wanted to move down here, but our youngest was still in high school at the time. So we put it on the back burner, looked at all these other places, even considered Scottsdale because it was so nice.
Yeah.
But I need to be close to water and Asian things. So there wasn't enough of that over there.
Too dry.
And it was too dry. So we reconsidered Vegas, but literally from the beginning moment of, hey, let's move this year instead of next year, it was 60 days from the beginning of planning to figuring out the logistics of moving, figuring out the shipping container, finding a new place. We downsized from a house. So from a 2,300 square foot home into a 2-bedroom apartment because we're new empty nesters.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I had to declutter, get rid of things, sell things, give away things, trash things, the whole house. And we ended up getting all new furniture because none of our furniture fit into an apartment.
I was amazed. I saw on Facebook the container and I'm like, that's not very big at all. That's almost nothing, just prized possession. So what an interesting choice to make, especially I think during COVID, everybody was sort of in this anything's free game, maybe we just sell our house and we go into a RV or we go camp or, but we're in 2025. So for you to do this at this stage in your life and so abruptly is a pretty big move, literally and figuratively. I'm excited to talk about that relative to decision making. I heard it this way once. I don't know if this is an exact science, but I subscribe to this, that successful people are quick to make a decision and it takes them a long time to change their mind. And typically people that are unsuccessful, that's a broad way to divide it, successful and unsuccessful, but are people that take a long time to make a decision and they're quick to change their mind. I think being a leader, you have to be like that. You have to kind of thin slice, gut check, gut analytics, look at some hard data and be like, we're doing this and it's not going to change unless it has to, versus I don't know, I've been thinking, we've been talking about, I don't know about you, but I get really annoyed by people. Well, end of sentence, but I get really annoyed by people that just talk about what they're going to do and then never do it. So I think it's impressive that you've done it. It also seems like it's a quality of you and Travis. Is that how you've always been? Are you kind of quick to make a decision, or was this way out of your comfort zone?
I've been quick to make decisions. I've actually been reprimanded for making quick decisions without thoroughly thinking through all the details.
Yeah.
So that quote was very reassuring.
Right. Yeah. It might just be a way to justify that I'm like you too. So yeah, maybe I just made that up in my head, but I definitely resonate. Whenever I heard it years ago, I was like, I'm going to go with that. That's going to help me justify my poor decisions.
So I've had to learn to think through things, but in that moment when I'm making decisions, my brain just goes off the rails. Like, okay, if I'm going to do this, what is this going to look like? What are the
Right.
logistics going to look like? It legit took, gosh, 2 full weeks of just straight looking up places. Well, first, let me backtrack. The shipping container that I got, this is how quick this decision was. I thought, oh, I'll get a pod. Great. Look at the dimensions. Great. I can use a pod. Then I check the pricing, then I check the shipping, and shipping across states is totally different than shipping within the state, you know? So
Right.
not every shipping company, moving company really just accommodates. You really have to look into the details and ask good questions, the right
Right.
questions. So then I thought, okay, this pricing and everything that I really want to happen isn't going to work with the pod. So I found a U box, which then I thought, oh, it must be the same size, and watched the video, but I did not check the dimensions. It came out way smaller than a pod, way smaller. When we went and picked it up, like I reserved it, boom, there's a date, we're gonna move. We went to go pick it up, and then I realized, holy
Oh
crap,
shoot.
this thing is way smaller. So did I make the adjustments? Yeah, kind of. We packed, it's kind of like COVID, the essentials, like only the
Right.
essentials stay, right? So we packed only the essentials. I did pack a few decor stuff, just a
Right.
few. I had to have some nice things.
Right.
But it was basically the essentials. We packed our car completely full. And then the few items that I couldn't take my plants. I downsized to 5 plants, and I had it properly situated in my shopping bag. And even that I couldn't take because if I was getting into the car, I had things under my feet. I had zero room to hold
How
my
far is the
plants.
drive, by the way, from where you were in Seattle to Vegas?
Um, it's about a 17-hour drive if you go
Oh.
straight. But we did do a little road trip through California.
Okay.
So we went to Redding and spent one night there, visited Bethel Church, which is
Oh, I love that.
visited our friends there, and then drove down to LA area, visited another friend there, and spent the night there in Beverly Hills, and then went east to Vegas. So, but yeah, I ended up having to ship 7 boxes of things. I had to ship my books. I still have one more box of books still waiting to be shipped. My son's going to ship it to me, and a couple of other things. But this whole entire move has been a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Complete whirlwind, 60 days, the whole from the beginning to actually ending up in Vegas. It was a test. It was a challenge.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that more, because I think sometimes, whether it's a metaphor or a literal move, we're like called to move. And we're both believers, so that sort of Christianese would say the Holy Spirit's prompting you, or you're getting a divine download, or you've got this gut feeling. I know the whole thing transpired over 60 days. Had there been still small voices coming through that you were to uproot and reroute? Like, when did that journey start, as far as like a new terrain or a new place? Because you said it wasn't like always Vegas. You don't strike me as a big gambler, so I don't think that was the reasoning why. It was like warmer climate, new space to occupy. How long had that been, or was it that abrupt that you were living life and then just got this like, oh shoot, we're supposed to move? I'm curious.
So the doubts were there. When we first started talking about it 4 years ago, we considered and we had some doubts. We were unsure. We kept talking about it and just kept talking about it and then placed it on the back burner. Didn't really think about it yet because it wasn't the right timing just yet. Because when you know, right? And if the timing isn't there, you're trying so hard, but it just isn't working out. You know, just because it's a, not everything that is a good challenge is, it's, sometimes it just doesn't work out the
I
way
mean,
that
that
you
that
should.
discernment is so hard too, right? Like, I always
Yeah.
wonder sometimes, like when there's struggle or opposition, like is this because it's so good that it's being opposed, or is it that it's not the right time? I mean, discernment, discretion, it's such an opaque, abstract thing. But I think like there's layers to that, and like at the core and like that like real pinpoint, you know, like if it's falling
Right.
into place, or it's like there might be tension or opposition, but it still sort of like unfolds versus forcing it, round peg in a square hole, trying to bend the universe to your will. So it sounds like the quote unquote like word or idea or rumbling started 4 years ago. I forgot that you had mentioned that, but then it
Yeah.
still took all those years and all those thoughts and all those conversations. And then when it hit, it was 60 days.
Yes, exactly. And gut feelings are real. Gut feelings originates in the part of your brain that actually has no words to it. So it's
That's
really
right.
hard to
Yeah.
describe and put into words, right? When you have that gut feeling, how do you verbalize that? And so this
I
time,
just do an
the gut
interpretive dance. That's my jam. Yeah. Like I'm trying to explain something here, but let me
with
just
ribbons and
ribbons.
flag.
Yeah. Yeah. I start painting. But
Yeah.
you're right. The limbic system, right, does not have the capacity for language. So you're trying to like express both to yourself and the people around you this like
Mhm.
prompting, this, like where there's supposed to be something here. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm tracking. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So after, so then it fast tracked to next year. So from 4 years ago, we kept talking about it sometime in the future to it'll be sometime next year in 2026 to after we checked with, just talked it over with our mentors. We have mentors because to do anything in life, you got to have mentors. So
Amen.
we talked with our mentors and, they agreed. Then as soon as we were all in agreement, bam, it happened. Like, okay, we can make it happen in September. Holy crap. Okay, that's coming up this year. It's only a couple of months away. How is that even going to work?
Yeah, right.
So, um, I had a lot of fear. It wasn't so much doubts this time around because when it's supposed to happen, the sure doubts may still creep in, but it's more of like fear. Like,
Mm.
okay, am I are we really supposed to do this? Are we going to be able to make it? How is everything going to work? Are our finances in order to be able to make that move? Um, and it was just so much planning, so much logistics, so much checking, rechecking, cross-checking. It was just a lot.
I mean, I remember talking to you in Scottsdale, and for our listeners to give some context to our
Yeah.
relationship, Christine and I met in Scottsdale, Arizona in April as part of a you could call it wasn't quite a conference, but like an accounting retreat, you could say, or like a way to allegedly recharge after the tax season, which I am not an accountant. I don't think anyone thought I was, but not a tax professional, which I'm looking forward to getting into your background because it's not this long-standing accounting traditional background, which I think is really cool that you have this creative background that you've brought into this industry. But I remember talking to you in Scottsdale at I think it was at breakfast that final day. But that that's probably worth talking about too because we just had so much fun. There was like connection and alignment. When I met Trav, I just was like, this guy's the man. Like he's so freaking funny and I'm goofy and silly and like Trav takes it to another level. Like I'm like, yes, man. Like I've met in fact, he said this to me. I think he messaged me when we left. He was like, you're my spirit animal. I was like, you're my spirit animal, man. Um, but I remember those conversations with you and just to kind of like tee up some of the things that I hope we can discuss and to highlight you. One of the things that really attracted me to you and Travis that I kind of clocked pretty early on in the interaction was like, oh, these are people that are on a path of personal development. They understand personal growth and you are the average of the books that you read, the content that you consume, the events that you attend, and most importantly, the people you surround yourself with, right? We're all a byproduct of that. So when we started comparing notes about books that we had read or that I think you physically had one there, it was like, oh, okay, we're on the same wavelength. Yeah, yeah. We're on the same frequency.
Yeah. I still have it, actually, the 5 a.m. Club. So I did finish reading this book,
Yeah, it is.
and it made a huge difference in my life. It also made me more aware of what I can do better. Just because you may not follow it to the T doesn't necessarily mean you don't take anything from it.
Right.
So, yeah, it's more about what you get out of the books instead of just reading books and then reading another book and then reading another book and not really getting anything out of it. So,
yeah, I'm a big believer like that we should reread the books that we read. There's a few books I have kind of like my top 5, top 10 list that I've read multiple times. And this really interesting thing happens where when you reread the book a year or 2 years later, it's like somebody came and rewrote the whole thing. And it's like, did this book change? Is this like an adapted version or an updated volume? And it's like, no, the book's not different. You're different, right? Like you've grown and experienced things, and you've triumphed and you've struggled, and then now it's popping off the page in a different way. So there's so much more opportunity to like pull from and saturate the wisdom in a lot of these great books. But people, I think, get linear with it and think like, oh, I'm just going to read it. And it's like, well, you don't get like an award for finishing the book. You know, you get an award for applying everything and like actually studying these concepts. So it sounds like you're a student and somebody that like continues to grow, continues to learn, continues to stretch yourself. And that's sadly really rare these days.
Well, knowledge is not power. It's applied knowledge that's power.
Yes.
So I'm currently rereading Atomic Habits. I love that book. I can't find the book because it's in a box somewhere. So I'm listening to the audiobook of it. And just re-listening to the words hit me a different time this time at this stage in my life, especially after having gone through a move, especially after I went through a ton of personal growth last year, the first year that I started my practice. And then this year, having gone through a ton of professional growth, a ton of mistakes, a lot of trial and error.
Right.
So, and we are also both, Trav and I, we're big believers of always being a student, always learning, always growing, because the day that you stop growing and learning is literally the day that you die. You're just a body waiting to be put in the ground.
Totally. Yeah, it's right on the Academy page, the MyCore Academy, the like punchline, punchline. It says, "Are you growing or dying?" And I'm a big believer that if you're not ripening, you're rotting. There's no such thing as stagnation or flatlining. In fact, if you're flatlining, it's because you've flatlined, right? It's because you don't have a pulse, you don't have a heartbeat. So
chose to do that.
That's a cool. What'd you say?
Yeah. Oh, you chose to do that. Like if you flatline, it's because you choose to do so. You chose not to learn anything new or not to make new friends, because you are the average of the 5 people closest to you as well. So, and so we guard our intimate circle, like our closest circle, very heavily. And you know, we've got friends now that we're in Vegas. We're making new friends.
Yeah, right. I say all the time, like, no new friends, but what that sort of means is I'm not going to put people into my inner circle just because I met them or we networked. It's like there's ways to be protective, and I would even say like vigilant of those inner circles. But what a cool opportunity for you to kind of reevaluate who makes the cut, and it's an interesting way to say it because it makes it sound like you're in like a club, an exclusive club that, only a few people can make it into. But in a sense, you are, because when looking back over your life, the trials, the tribulations, the mistakes, the missteps, like there's a price that you had to pay to know that thing. And like it takes one to know one, So at some stage, you start to realize, I'll speak for myself, like it's almost like a form of humility. Like I don't have the energy for that shit. Like I'm not God. I can't like
Right.
show up in that relationship and be depleted of it, because then I'm like toast. I'm done. And I still have the rest of the day that I need to get through. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that every moment of every relationship you're expecting to be energized. That would make you a narcissist vampire, that you're trying to just pull people's energy. But it should be like reciprocal, and it should be something that you take turns, right? Like, hey, it's your turn. I say this all the time with my executive team. I say, look, guys, it's perfectly okay if we all quit. We can quit on this mission. We can quit on this company. We can quit our jobs. We can quit the vision. We just can't all quit on the same day, So as long as you're, and there's 7 of us, so pick a day, but we're not all quitting on one day. And that happens all the time, that sometimes the team needs you and sometimes you need the team. Sometimes the meeting needs you. Sometimes you need the meeting. Sometimes, we used to say this in a previous business, like sometimes you need the event and sometimes the event needs you. And we're going to be speaking at this event, My Core Collective. I want to get into that a little bit too, but I'm super stoked for you to grace the stage and share your wisdom and be a teacher of all the things that you've been a student of. It's going to be awesome.
Well, I'm deeply honored. I'm always a student, so it's refreshing to be up there and teach once in a while. It's pretty cool. I'm a heavy believer in always guarding your energy, protecting your energy. Not everyone deserves to know your story. They should earn the right to hear your story, if it's worth sharing. So, and just being up on stage, I think it'll be such a really cool way for me to just get a little refresher. Honestly, this whole move, I kept thinking all the things that were happening during the move. I'm like, this is probably going to make it into my story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I have photos. I have things I might put up. We'll see.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I'm a big believer in like, keep it fresh, like hot off the press, like this just in, like if you can use examples of how you've applied your growth and your development to things that are like within the last few weeks, or like this literal season or moment that you're in. So many people dust off old trophies, and I hate this. It's the like regurgitation model where a person or a coach or a leader has done like just enough work, been in the right environments and the right conversations to like separate themselves from the pack. And they've probably accomplished some things or built some philosophies or some new neural pathways during that time. And then they just keep dusting off those old trophies or like regurgitating things that they've heard. And it becomes really rote, and you can like hear it, It's like, you sound like you just like chewed up food and tried to spit it out. I'm not a baby bird. I don't need you to like throw up in my mouth. Like I need you to tell me the story, as gross as that is, of like how you're grappling with and wrestling with and stretching through something like fresh, something fresh in your life. So this move is super fresh. You're still in the thick of it. I'm surprised you even have your books next to you, because you aren't even fully moved in.
My books are so important to me. Books are sacred to me, and that was actually one of the boxes of out of so many boxes of books. I had one more left to ship because it's that important. But stories, I heard it this way a while ago, and I may butcher the saying, but an average mindset talks about the past, right? But the bigger mindset talks about the future. So when we're constantly testing, challenging ourselves, we position ourselves to be set up for intake, for growth, for new learnings, growing our capacity, and resharing our stories to make it that much more relevant. Because I actually recently just mentioned this to someone else, a gal that's going through some new challenges right now. Everything that we go through is a test in life,
Mm.
And if it's not meant to just only grow ourselves, because growing ourselves is just one thing, it's just one little small thing. It's about sharing your trials and tribulations and your overcomings with other people to help them get through it. So
Totally.
all of the stories that we collect throughout our life, throughout our careers, whatever that we're going through in life, it's all really meant to add value to others, to help make it easier for others as well. Because there is no written manual of life, you
Right.
know, but it's through the collective, the collections of all the people's stories.
That's a good plug. I see what you did there, Christina. But it's so true. That's why we titled it that way. We
Yeah.
were like, what are we going to call this? How are we going to position this? And to echo what you're saying there is, it's like life's a collective, it's an aggregate, and we have to be collectors. We have to have a collection and a collective. So I love the way you're framing that. Something else you just said right there that I thought was sort of clever to your brand, and you can share that.
Mm-hmm.
Success leaves clues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people that are doing the deal, and nobody's perfect, nobody has this thing figured out, right? But when you're dialed in, you're locked in, it's clocking, you're standing on business, as Justin Bieber would put it, like, and you have solid foundation and solid core. And as Christians, that for me is like an order to things, like a faith, family, finance, or a, God, people, business. Like that's kind of my jam.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of one's faith, if you read the Bible, it's just chock full of really great life lessons, and it's not designed to be a personal development book, but it just is. It just naturally is. I mean, the philosophies of sowing and reaping, and how to treat people. I mean, you can just look at Jesus's life. He did it pretty well, perfectly actually. But yeah, so and we killed him for it, which was very kind of us. But I love your brand, and I want to hear a little bit about your background too, because like you don't become Christina Messer without it being a mess, right? I mean, not that you're a mess, but
Yes.
that like there's a mess in that masterpiece, right? There's a test in that testimony. I know that you had a really challenging marriage. I know that you have two children, 24 and 20. And it's my understanding that marriage was 16 years. Was it abusive and unhealthy for all 16 years? Most of it? Like tell us about that if you don't mind. I know that's this.
Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly, right? That's the purpose of this podcast, is to get to the core of people. So we want to hear all the things. And then I'm curious about your professional background too. So take us back a little bit to like those times of your life.
So I got married because I had gotten pregnant at 19 years old. And with my family, my mom's saying is, we're Asians, we're Christians. This is the way that we do things.
Wow.
So she did not want me to be a single mom in a small college town. She wanted me to have an abortion. She made an appointment for me at Planned Parenthood. I said no. She said, you're going anyway. So I went, I heard them out, watched the videos, all the educational stuff that they make sure that you're fully aware of, and disclosing all the things. And I still said no, because I don't believe in that. I was really looking forward to having my baby. So she said, okay, you're getting married. I made an appointment for you at the courthouse. You're getting married next week. So.
Wow, Christina. So she was
that was the beginning of my marriage. Yes.
Do you think she'll listen to this?
Maybe this
not. Is one of the hardest things. Like I've been, this is like, I think I don't know, coming up on like my 40th episode of the My Core podcast. And it's been a little over a year since I started doing it. And it's wild. God's using the conversations and and like I'm not like Oprah, I'm not like qualified or something or a psychiatrist, but these conversations I have are like real, raw, core stuff. And then one of the biggest challenges, particularly amongst millennials, is like our parents are still alive. They're still like in our lives. And there's like all this trauma and there's like these issues. And then like we start talking about them and I'm like, oh shit, are they going to listen to this? I never know. But at the risk of offending your mother, she was that controlling of your decision making in that moment.
Yes, she has since apologized though. So we've
Cool.
made amends. Um, but and it took me a long time to really get over that emotionally. I recently realized, okay, if you're still having emotions from some whatever trauma, then that's PTSD. So I'm like, okay, I
Right.
learned something new about myself. So, but she has since apologized. But during that time, throughout my marriage, things would happen. It wasn't that it was physically abusive all the time, but there were few times when I thought it was my fault
Mm.
because I was dealing with the consequences of my actions of getting married out of wedlock or having a baby, getting pregnant out of wedlock. So for the longest time I felt so guilty. I had zero confidence. I went through the emotional abuse too, the manipulation, the emotional abuse, and I just thought it was all his fault. But the truth is, there were some times when it would have been my fault too. And I can honestly say that I wasn't the perfect spouse. I
Mm.
tried to be. I read so many books. I shaped myself. I made myself the perfect wife. I never spoke ill of my husband. I covered for him to the point where when I did try to go through divorce multiple times, my family did not support me because they thought he
Wow.
was a perfect child or the perfect son. So I and I still distinctly remember having the conversation with my mom one time where I said I'm trying to file for a divorce, and she said to me, "No one will support you when you go about it this way. Like no one will support you. The judge is not going to rule in your favor at all.
Oh,
They're going to award the kids over to him because he's the one that makes the money and he supports the kids, and he's being a good father." So it was a it was such a huge challenge that, and I've told people too, I was a big introvert, but when you make that choice and you decide to step out of your comfort zone and you choose to be better, if you choose to act a certain way, to act better, to be a better person, God will put the right people around you to help you go through all those challenges. So the past 8 years, I have fully evolved myself to where speaking in front of people with tremendous stage fright to now being able to speak in front of people. Sure, I still get butterflies and I still get nervous, but it isn't so blinding. People now it's all about anxiety, right? Like I get
right.
anxiety going up. I get anxiety talking to people. Well, we used to call it stage fright
Right.
when anxiety wasn't a word.
Yeah. It's
And
not all stress
I
is bad. Yeah.
Right. Not all stress is bad. There is good stress. I used to get tunnel vision just talking in front of groups of people, let alone speaking up on stage. The sound, like, the hearing thing would just get like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like this feeling of going through a tunnel where all the sound gets drowned out and then you're just there. It's almost like I pass out, but I'm still standing.
Yeah. I
Like I
feel
thought,
this way when I speak and I kind of just get into a flow state, but I'm like, yeah, I totally blacked out. I have no idea. And then like later it will click that I said a thing or somebody be like, hey, that thing. And I was like, I said that. So, but there's like the flow state and then there's like the sort of system override that can really be detrimental to the thought process. Christina, I got to go back because you shared some important things, and I have questions.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to just ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
So you're 19
Hmm.
when you get pregnant, and were you married by 20? Like, how quickly from finding out that you were pregnant to legally signing a document, I'm assuming in a courthouse, or did you go to Vegas? Is that why you have sentimental connection? I'm joking. Like, how long was that time lapse between finding out you're pregnant to being married?
2 weeks.
Okay. You and I have this in common, by the way. So in
Mm.
2012, um, find out like late July, married August 10th, about 2 weeks. Um, I was 23 at the time, not 19, but pretty young.
Yeah.
And then your two children are with your ex-husband.
Yes.
And other than, and this is an Asian thing. I mean, people are like this, but this is like an Asian culture thing along amongst like the husband. If he provides and he's not like dragging you out in the street by your hair, be happy and suck it up, Buttercup. Is that part of the culture of? I don't know anything about Asian culture.
Um, it's more of, well, we're Christians, you're gonna be married, you're not gonna be a single mom in a small college town.
Right.
And I think
Where
it's
was
more
that
stemmed
town?
from
Where's home?
that was back in Washington. We
Okay.
got married in Bellevue Courthouse. I didn't really have any close friends that I could invite to the wedding. I texted people and some people couldn't make it. All of his friends showed up to support it. And it it was, I think it stems more from my mother's own history, her own background of immigrating over here. So we all came over here when I was really little. My sister
Okay.
was only 2.5. I was a baby. I was born in Taiwan, but we immigrated
Okay.
here when I was really little. We moved to Texas first.
Oh wow.
And during that time, my family's own background, like my mother went through a very abusive relationship. My father had girlfriends that he would parade around our house. And they would treat my mother like
He would bring
dirt.
him into your home.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So, and you can still see glimpses of that type of um, lifestyle around the Chinese culture. If you listen, if you look harder, like you can see where some people's mindsets are.
And that mindset being like men rule the world, and we can pretty much do whatever we want. Deal with it.
Yeah. So
Wow.
growing up, whenever I would go back to Taiwan and visit in the summer, I'd make friends over there, and every once in a while I come across a guy that has that mindset, and they treat girls like crap, that women are nothing, we're meant to be submissive and just only serve the men in our lives. So, and so coming from that childhood, and then being married to my boyfriend, right? Like we were only together for a year, off and on relationship. Tried breaking up 6 different times. I did not see a future with him at all. But what he wanted me to do was to stay home and take care of the kids. And to me, during that time in my life, I saw that as just being a dutiful wife, not having
Right.
any say so in anything, not having any opinions in anything. And I rebelled hard.
Right.
So, and when you're in your early 20s, throughout 20s, you're still evolving, you're still growing, you're still coming into your own being and learning how to, like, learning your identity, right? And so I felt very oppressed. I felt like I wasn't really able to um, learn freely and grow into myself freely. And so during that time, throughout the whole, 16 years, and 4 years of that was divorce, actually. So we were together and we were married for 12 years and tried separating, and he refused. But during that 12 years of just being actively married to him, I had my flings, I had my affairs, because I just did not have, I felt like I didn't have the support.
And when you say affairs, do you mean an affair or like events? Okay, so when you say you rebelled, you stepped outside of this really unhealthy marriage and
Yes.
found connection to and peace and like acceptance and things that you either one didn't experience because you were so young or just like needed, like your literal nervous system needed that
Yeah.
experience. So you had affairs. Did he as well?
He did not. And that was part of the reason why my family did not support me in filing for divorce either, because they saw me as just being a horrible mom, being a horrible wife, having affairs, and just not being a good example and role model to my kids.
I just want to commend you for your vulnerability. Like this is super not fun conversation to have, and I appreciate you having it. Did did he sort of position himself as like the good one, and then the things that were happening that were more jacked up, fucked up, were like small and like under the surface, like you couldn't see it? Or was he truly a good man and it was the wrong fit? Because it sounds like there's something else going on here in the way that he treated you.
Yeah, he was a great person in front of people publicly, but behind closed doors, it was just completely different. But who am I to broadcast those failures to other people, to the public? I never really talked about that to my family, even.
See, this is so interesting to me because I'm um so there's a lot of parallels. I'm just going to leave it at that, between you and I. Lot of them. I had an affair in 2012
Hmm.
in my marriage, and way outside of my like moral compass and code. Like it wasn't something I thought I would ever do. Um, you had mentioned earlier in the conversation, you kind of started to talk about being introverted.
Hmm.
And I wonder if, in a way, and then interestingly enough, that sort of like segued into your voice and speaking. And I
Hmm.
think back to like sort of origin. What I'm hearing, reading between the lines, is like I didn't know how to speak up or speak out, even in confidence, like even a close friend or a family member to be like, hey, these are the things that are happening. And then it's like a double whammy because that person often is presented well themselves, like they're polished, but then
Right.
the other party also knows how to position them well. So they're getting like third party edification and being built up by you, the very person that's under the abuse and that's dealing with the manipulation. And then when that shit goes sideways, everybody's like construct in their mind of the dynamic is like, wait, what?
Hmm.
Because you actually told me that he's a good man, or you're the one that said she's wonderful. And now are you just playing victim, justifying your poor behavior? I mean, this is a really complex part of the human condition, and I've lived through it. So it sounds like some of that is, am I kind of tapping on some of the dynamics?
Yeah, so one of the big things that I had to learn was I hate labels, um, because a lot of the times labels create that identity for you. And for the longest time throughout my almost my entire marriage, I did not see myself as a victim. I did not see myself as in just being in domestic abuse.
Hmm.
Um, to the point where when I finally did try to seek help and file for divorce on my own, I spoke with attorneys, I spoke with counselors, I had a psychiatrist, which honestly made me feel like my whole entire childhood was horrible.
Right, right, like all of it.
Like all the whole thing was just horrible, and you're just a messed up person because of your horrible childhood. I was just like, this isn't helping me get anywhere.
Right,
Um,
thanks for nothing.
so, so for the longest time, I just rejected that idea. I could not come to, I just couldn't accept that I was a victim.
Yeah,
Because to me, in my mind, victims of domestic abuse was they appear battered, they
right.
physically look a certain way, they act a certain way, and I wasn't any of that. However, I learned too late that, there is the emotional abuse. There is there is that trauma. There, you're still a victim in a certain way, but not all victims look the same. A lot of the time just covered up, right? So
Hmm.
so during that time it was um man, I had like just I guess I had pride in that way too. So that pride was knocked out of me. I was humbled many, many, many times in my life. Um and they all shaped who I am. It all helped me to understand that people are people. We're completely all 100% imperfect. We don't look a certain way. We don't have this perfect perception of like this idea of how people are should be, how wives should act, how husbands should act. Sure, there are things that shape us into our ideals of that perfect spouse. Um, but having just taking the expectation off of others and just only committing to just improving ourselves, right? I mean, that's really the only way that we can operate. And so when I finally focus on just improving myself, understanding that I am under a certain circumstance, that even though I don't call myself a victim, there are people that would label me as being a domestic violence, a DV victim. I hated that title too, like, oh, you've got the DV title. And when you're filing for divorce, I had to make sure that I marked the DV so that things were more sensitive, that it wasn't going to be sent out to the other party. Just all of these logistics. Um, so that was hard, just coming to terms with that reality. And when I finally understood what that looked like, that was when I realized, okay, now I understand. Now I'm fully aware of my situation. Now I can take the necessary steps to improve my life. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I filed for divorce. I tried two other times. The third time was when I finally succeeded. Why? Because the trigger point after those first two times was when I saw my son acting out a certain way towards my daughter. And he was being physical. He was getting physical with her. That was when I realized, no, this is not going to continue on in my legacy. That I'm not teaching my kids this. They are not going to become just like their fathers. So that was my trigger point. And then I finally wised up and realized that I need to stop covering for my ex. When I stopped covering for him, that was when I realized, okay, now I can actually take the steps that I need to finalize his divorce, which again, it took 4 years, but
Right.
um, yeah. Would I do it again? Yeah, I would.
What year did you get divorced? What year was that?
It finalized 2016,
So from
October 2016.
2012 to 2016, were you guys living together or you were doing life? Was it a 4 year separation or was it like cohabitating and it
Yeah.
was purgatory?
Um, I think it was like around a year and a half to almost 2 years. We were technically separated, but he refused to move out. So I moved into another room. I just let him take over the master bedroom, and I just took over the guest room. Um,
And would you say that was for financial reasons? Like if you like, why not get your own place? I mean, it's expensive to live, but or were you still like not quite able to leave the home?
I did not want to leave my kids there with him.
Right. Okay.
So I just moved into another room. That's it.
So you could have a protective presence, but be effectively separated.
Yes, exactly. During that separation though, it was hard. I would be online talking to people, it's just, and then he would act out by unplugging the internet, unplugging things, turning the power off. It was just different things, different
Just
drama.
grasping at straws to control you in a way that he didn't have the control that he once had, but now he can have something. Literally, like
Right,
your internet connection gave him some form of control over you to disrupt
right,
your life.
exactly. So, um,
Damn.
that was hard. And the friends that were in the middle of that, gosh, I felt so bad for them. Like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this with me, because he would find out who I was talking to just either through Facebook or on my phone records, whatever, and he would call them and ask them questions. So, yeah, it was a really, really, really challenging time. It was so hard, but you know, when you make that decision, when I made that decision, I wasn't going to budge from it. And I tried many, many times to first try to save the marriage, but then realizing that it it just I couldn't stay in it. I remember telling people in my first year of marriage that this was my starter marriage. But did I completely believe it at the time? I don't know. Like it was just
Right. It's both of these things exist. Like you can know a thing and sort of hindsight being 2020, you're like, "Oh, I always knew." But it's like, "Yeah, but you also did your darndest to keep your family together." I mean,
yeah, throughout all the challenges, throughout all the things, and sometimes I would reveal a hint of what's going on to my mom. And she'll just remind me, well, this was your consequence. You have to live with the decision that you made.
damn.
So for the longest time, I felt so guilty, and that did shape my identity by 1,000%. I considered myself an introvert. And here's the thing too, is in hindsight, kids were not really born to be timid. You know, we
Right.
were born to talk to people. We were born with curiosity.
Hmm.
We are meant to be a light to others. It's through experiences that shapes that ultimately shape our identity and our behaviors. So for the longest time, I was just like, oh well, I'm just an introvert. I don't talk to people. I can't go up and stage on stage in front of people. I can't talk in groups of people. It was just really hard. Like I would get so paralyzed by fear that it was just so hard for me. My first time ever learning how to talk in front of people was when my son was in co-op. He was only maybe about 3 years old, and I was sitting in a circle with other moms. I had to speak for my little tiny human. So I had to learn to overcome that fear of public speaking. So that was my first time ever, just stepping out and learning how to talk to people. And then over the years, I've had more and more experiences. But when you're in the right place, when you position yourself in a place of learning instead of no, I don't want to go anywhere near that, then that allows you to overcome any fear and be able to step out in faith and know that, you can overcome all of these. fears and challenges and whatnot. So I tell people all the time, especially a lot of like single women or single moms, we are all humans of overcomings.
Mm.
We overcome so many trials, so many challenges, so many tribulations that sometimes, we don't even see it as a trial, but it may
Right.
be minute to us, but it may be ginormous to someone
It's
else.
business as usual, and it's like, wait, what? That's not normal. Like that's not a day in the
Right.
life. Like that's some serious shit. So we connected as we'd already shared in the beginning of this conversation around personal growth and personal development. At what point did you embark on that? Like when did you start to like have a day of decision or go like I don't have to be this way? Is that something you kind of always flirted with and then something awoken, or was it like a moment that something happened or you got introduced to something or someone? I'm kind of curious because in this narrative, I'm envisioning like a Christina that I don't know. I've only known you 6 months. So when you describe yourself in that marriage and in that season of life, I'm like, this is a pretty wild story about somebody that I've never met and you've never met. And then I'm like, wait, no, that's you. Like that's you in this story. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if there's like a moment or a season where you stepped into like this new you.
Yeah, so I would say it wasn't just one moment or one season. It's a combination of multiple moments because it's an evolution. It
Right.
takes time to grow into who you want to be. So my first moment, so let me backtrack. That trigger moment of seeing my son act out towards my daughter, that was one moment there. In that one moment of decision making, like, this is it. I am
Right.
changing our lives. The next moment was when I was like during my divorce, I went back into the workforce, had to figure out what I could do. And my background was marketing communications. I tried to get a college degree while being pregnant, while having young kids, and I had to be the breadwinner. I had to
Right.
work while he continued to finish his degree. And so it's always been like I've always been supporting him.
Right.
And as a wife, that's always been my stance is even if I make more money than my husband, it's still secondary income to him
Wow.
because he is the leader of the family. And so waited for him to leave, but in the meantime, I stepped out, made money, found jobs, made money, made it work, tried to go through schooling while raising little kids, and I couldn't because I had too many distractions at home. I commend single moms that are able to do that, work jobs, raise kids, and go through schooling and get their degree.
Yeah, it's
You know,
amazing.
yeah, it's a lot to handle. So that was another season of life where I had to learn to do that. During that season of life, and this is kind of leading into where I am now, but when I had my last job as a 1099 status or contractor status when I should have been a W-2, that was when I ended up owing thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes while I was going through divorce. Um, and I vowed never to be in that again. Like I need to figure it out. Like what am I doing wrong? I didn't know anything. I
You
didn't
didn't
have
know what you
anyone to
didn't know. Yeah.
didn't know what I didn't know. Oh, and there was another moment in time where the kids were younger, this is going back a little bit, but we were on food stamps and on WIC checks, and the kids were little. We were living, still in Washington Federal Way and living in a small apartment. It was always me. It wasn't my husband, but it was always me going to different Catholic churches, standing in line, waiting to appeal my case to get, to ask them for supporting, my family and paying the bills. So I had to wait in line to ask for help in paying those bills. And I also at that moment realized I never want to be in this position again. Like I don't want government assistance. I need to be self-sufficient.
Wow.
So So all of those moments led up to where I kept thinking to myself, like, throughout my 20s and part of my 30s, I wanted a mentor. I wanted someone to guide me, and help shape and smooth out all of those roughness that I had. I wanted to be a diamond, but that takes a lot of polishing,
And a
right?
lot of pressure.
And a lot of pressure, which, I firmly believe the desires of our heart was not just, it doesn't just materialize out of nowhere. It was placed in our heart for a reason.
Amen.
So that desire had always been there. There was one day where I just happened to go to the store. I'm a big believer of just natural treatments, but I was so sick to the point where I didn't know what else I could do for myself. So I went to the store, stood in the cough medicine aisle for the longest time. There was another lady standing there, also standing there for a really long time, and she was there for her daughter. We started talking and just sharing with each other in the grocery store of all places. And that was when I realized, okay, I need to find out more about who she knows, because she talked about having mentors in her life.
Wow.
So I pursued that, got connected with the right people, got connected, and was able to pursue them for mentorship. And this couple has been so instrumental in our life, in my life, and Travis's life, actually. But this was before we started dating. This was when I was still newly divorced. And because I had that victory of finalizing the divorce, I felt like I could do anything, that I was on top of the world. Like, it was it was a 12-year challenge. I felt like, now I can pursue business ownership. Now I can pursue whatever my heart
The
desires
world's
and
your
think I
oyster
can
all
do.
over. Yeah. Because you had
Exactly.
this second lease on life. Were these people you met, or this woman that you met, was it like through a church or a business or like a program, or just literally just people that care about people?
A stranger in the grocery store, just, it was not out of coincidence, because I firmly do not believe in
Right. No
coincidence.
such
Things
thing.
happen
But
for
it
a
was a
reason.
clue that you, with your little
Yes.
magnifying glass, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So when I got connected with them, that was where I started that personal growth journey, the intense personal growth journey,
Right.
where I could fully focus on being a better version of myself.
It wasn't just the school of hard knocks at that point. You were seeking and studying and applying and battle testing what it takes to grow as a person and
Yeah.
kind of move through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or through the levels of life where it's not just food, water, shelter, or uh, getting validation from your mother or family. It was like,
Yeah.
wait, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but in my journey, one of my strengths, being the fourth of 9 children and always being in a position of leadership and growing up very poor, um, anything that takes care of myself is very uncomfortable. I feel like I'm being selfish or self-centered, or I'm taking away from other people. And that has bit me in the ass so many times, where I've crashed out or, like hit a wall because I just am not super great at taking care of myself, in my headspace. I'm pretty darn good at getting other people around me that take care of me, to the
Yeah.
point of like, hey Nathan, you need to eat, remember? And it's like, oh, okay, thanks. Or logistics. And you've probably even experienced it with seeing my team. Like, I
Yeah.
don't do anything at my core. You know what I mean? I have a team that does that, and they steward it and they manage it and they lead it. But it's kind of comes from a dark place, which is that I'm like an idiot that can barely take care of myself. So did you struggle at all in that moment with like feeling like it was even okay to start to work on yourself and to dream and to have like a vision for your life?
Yeah. It was throughout my entire first marriage. I felt guilty for thinking anything towards myself,
Wow.
because I wasn't in the right headspace to afford that.
Right. So
So
getting your
I,
nails done was like irresponsible, or taking a day and just like recharging would have made you feel like a bad mother or something of that. Or a girls' night out was something that was like selfish, and you were off your duties when you should have been dutiful through and through.
yes. And there has been times where I wanted to hang out with just the girls, but I would ask for permission from my husband. And if he said no, then it's no. So I also, during that time, I didn't exactly know how to develop deeper friendships. Throughout my childhood, we had moved so many times. My parents had also divorced,
Hmm.
but throughout my I mean, I went through 11 different public schools, and lived in multiple states. So I didn't really learn how to develop deeper friendships. And then into adulthood, with the same thing with my marriage, whenever I wanted to make that deeper connection with people, I couldn't. The first time I got my nails done was after I was going through divorce and in that separation stage, where I actually went and got my nails done, um, on my own. And that was the coolest feeling ever. Like, before, I had it done one other time during my marriage, but that was because he wanted me to.
Right. He controlled that in some
Right. And then
whatever.
so then I could decide, oh, I can get creative because he's like, okay, here, we're in Hong Kong, so you can go and get your nails done with my mom. I'm like, oh, yay. So I started reveling in that fact and getting creative with different nail designs, just something as simple as like thinking creatively about nail designs, which then consumed my whole entire being because I thought, oh my gosh, this is my one chance to do something really fun for myself.
Oh my gosh, Christina. So you're saying that it was such a rarity that when it was announced to you that you were going to be doing this, you became almost obsessed with the possibilities, because you're like, I'm going to Disney World. Like, this is my one chance to get my
Yeah,
nails done.
it was such a strange feeling to me. Also growing up, because we were very typical Asian, like I learned piano and violin. We had to practice an hour each on each instrument. And so I did not have any nails. Like my nails were always cut short. That
Right.
was not a thing at all. I didn't have any colored shoes. It was just mostly black or browns. That was it.
Hmm.
So, so then coming into this world of like, oh my gosh, just I get to design my nails. This is so cool. So I remember that and I held on to that. So then after I filed for divorce and then we were separated and then just finalizing everything, I was able to go and just decided to go and do my nails. That was such a treat, to the point now where like I still get my nails done. Um it's become just ingrained in me, like, to always look good, because it's such a confidence booster. When you look good, you feel good, right?
Totally.
So I just don't like going back to that stage. I haven't really touched my violin in years, even though I can still play, and because I was classically trained. And so travel sometimes asks me, "Are you gonna play the violin again?" I'm like, I could, but I would have to cut my nails short.
Right. Right. You're like, yeah, it's the toss up. Yeah.
It's a little toss up. Like, to others, it's like, that's such a silly thing. Why are you even thinking about that? But to me, with all of my experience, being able to finally go and get my nails done, something as trivial as that, it's big to me. So to
Wow.
me, it's like a little luxury.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow, Christina, what an amazing story. So this divorce occurs in 2016. You're
It
then,
finalized in 2016. Yeah.
and when did you, was it in 14 that you started living alone and embarking on like growth, and then when did you meet your now husband, who I adore, Travis? Like how long have you guys been together?
So we, so in 2015, actually before the divorce finalized, like fully finalized, 2015 was when um, Facebook recommended for us to be friends. We
Nice.
had known each other from church before,
Okay.
and because it was such a mega church, right? I was directing media, I was a big volunteer in church, and he came into the sound booth because he not only played drums, but he was also doing the sound, so sound
Okay.
engineering. So
Oh
I
yeah,
was
he's a
just very
sick
excited.
drummer, dude. He sent me a video. I'm like, bro, like you're like a really good drummer.
He is very naturally talented, and when he practices and stuff, his skills gets even better. So it takes him to a whole nother level.
So cool.
And so he's asked to guest drum at churches all the time. Like we're actually going to be in Florida in October
Oh really?
for drumming. Yeah. So
What
and
part
they
of
want
Florida?
me to. It's for a conference. It's a Renko East conference for this pastor that we of this church that we attended back in Washington.
That's so cool. And what dates? We could talk about this offline, but
Uh, I'll I'll text you the dates. I got to
all right.
figure that out.
Yeah, text me
It's
the
going to
dates
be in
because if it's
Orlando.
I'm 2 hours from there. I'll come see you guys. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. Let me know the dates. If I'm in
I
town, I'll
will.
come. At least we'll get lunch or grab a drink.
Yeah. So um when we first met each other, it was like, I don't know, 2010, 11, 12, whatever. The dates are kind of fuzzy because we just knew of each other then.
Right.
But then 2015, Facebook recommended for us to be friends. I messaged him going, wait, did you unfriend me? I thought we were already
Right. I thought we were already friends.
right. And he goes, I'm sorry. I got divorced. My ex-wife took all the girls on my Facebook. And I was just like, oh, sorry. Um, but then, I could relate because I'm like, "Whoops, I'm going through stuff right now myself.
Yeah.
And during that time, because I was just like, okay, I'm open to anything, but we were both not in the right headspace. So
Right.
we
Just
tried
not
to
good
date, but it
time.
didn't work. Just 1 month. We tried to date, but it didn't work. Then fast forward, 2016, October, divorce finalized. In January, I was fresh into new business ownership. I had a retail online e-commerce business. I was very much goal driven. I had my dreams, I had my goals, I had my visions laid out. He reached back out to me. He texted me. He could tell you this too, because this is hilarious. He texted me and said, hey, how have you been? And because I was so not in the headspace of dating, I tried, and it was at that point in life, I was like, all men suck.
Yeah, right. Like I'm done with men. I'm just goals and
I'm done with
vision and
dating. Like, what is this
yeah.
online world of dating? What is Tinder? What is all this stuff? And why are guys so like oldie, moldy, and crusty? Like, why are they? It's just, anyways.
So fun.
So he reached out to me and it was like, hey, what have you been up to? How are you doing? And my response was just, hey, period.
What do you want? Yeah.
Right. That was it. But he persevered. Like he pushed through that and he was just like, well, what have you been up to? And I'm like, well, if I'm gonna communicate with him, if I'm gonna be texting him, I might as well just tell him what I'm all about right now. So I just told him
Right.
these are the people that I met. They're gonna help me get to this point in life. And his response was, I want in.
That's awesome.
Like, crap. What am
You
I
thought it
supposed
would
to
be
do with
a
this now? Like,
resistor
this
and
is
it was an
not what I
attractor.
expected.
He's
Not
like,
gonna
sign me
talk
up.
to him. So I was like,
That's awesome.
okay, if we're gonna talk, then I'm gonna get us in a group environment. I'm gonna bring him around my mentors, and they can talk to him. So
Smart.
that's what we did for about a month. I introduced him, and every time that we met up, it was always with them.
Right. Just
So I didn't
these
have
are
to
my yeah.
do, I didn't
These are
have to do
not
the talk.
dates. This you're welcome in my circle and kind of fringe, but if you
Yes,
persevere through that, you might get a one-on-one meeting with me for coffee. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And they asked all the hard questions. Through them, I found out what his dreams and vision and goals were in life. Because by that point, I wasn't going to talk to you unless you have a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan.
Oh, I love this. This is so good. Dating
I
by way
learned
of goal
my
setting.
experience.
Yeah. It's so true
Yeah.
though. My mom said something to me and my parents have had a slew of issues, but they've, you know, survived and even thrived in many ways through those issues. And she gave me the most basic but profound advice. She said, God and goals. She's like, you got to have the same God and the same goals. And I think growing up in a Christian home, there was always a lot of like pressure or conversation around not being unequally yoked, and being in a relationship with somebody that doesn't share the same faith as you. I think the probably underappreciated or stated part of that would be the goals, right? So you had such clarity on the life that you now wanted to create in this second lease on life that you were like, if you don't have the same goals and they're not written down and they're not specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time bound, they better be smart goals, or I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want some bullshit New Year's resolutions. Like, they better be crystallized, written. There needs to be a plan. I want an objective, key results. Like, you were really dialed into measuring what matters. And the fact that he was with it probably made you go, okay, this is the horse of another color.
Yeah. I learned from my first experience because my ex-husband was not a Christian, but became a Christian because of my family. He used Bible verses against me and said, women submit to your husband.
That's a convenient one. That's a real good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I learned. It's just if you don't learn from experience, then you repeat the same mistakes, right?
Right.
I was about to have that. So, and then I also wanted to be sure that the man that I bring around my kids was going to be a great example to them and a great role model and a great father. So this time it wasn't just based off of emotions,
right?
Because everyone thinks like so many, it's just society. Like, you think relationships are all about emotions. No, there is strategy in there. Yeah. There is that list that you should have, your list of all of your non-negotiables. During the time frame when I tried dating and I was just so frustrated with the quality of people that I was meeting, that I got my ideal husband out of my head and I put it down, I listed it down on my phone just so that I could get it out of my head. Because I was like, if I'm not going to meet someone, that's okay. But at least my ideal person has been listed out somewhere. And if he materializes, great. If not, doesn't matter, And so during that time in my life, I was thinking, well, who's going to want to date a divorced single mom of 2 teenagers and a handicapped dog?
to boot. Just throw in the handicapped dog. That's messed up, Christine. Yeah.
Well, I had a part handicapped Frenchie at the time. He lost his back 2 legs. He couldn't, and he was incontinent, so he wore diapers too. It was literally like taking care of a baby. So I was just like, this dog is important to me. So if no man,
that would have been a deal breaker for me, just so you know. Like, that's one of the first things I wrote down when I was thinking about my future wife. I was like, no handicapped dogs. I barely can handle animals, not ones that are handicapped and hurting. No, I'm not a good enough person for that shit. That I'll leave that to Trav.
It was Travis. He did so good with my Frenchie, cared for him like a baby with the diaper changes and everything.
Amazing. Nope, I'd be out. I'd be like, peace. I'm getting back on Tinder.
Awesome. I had a long list, and Trav will tell you, like, I showed him the list, like, probably months after we started dating. We didn't start dating. Let me backtrack. We didn't start dating until after my mentors approved of him. Because I needed to get out of my head. Like, the saying, like, women see things through rose-colored glasses when they fall in love. It's like our brain grows legs and run out of our head. So I didn't want that to happen to me. I wanted to be fully, like, clear, level-headed. Yeah. So I gave them permission to tell me if my brain grows legs and run out of my head.
Right. Have I lost my damn mind on this, or are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? That's so cool.
So after probably about a month, that was when we went on our first dates. after they approved of him and they accepted him. They were like, yes, Christina, you should go. Like, he's a great guy. I'm like, okay, let's go on a date.
Yeah, finally. You finally make the cut.
Yeah. And then several months later was when I remembered my list, went back to it, scrolled through it, and realized, holy crap, he is everything on my list.
Oh, that's so powerful.
Yeah. So law of attraction, or I manifested him. But
Yeah.
it is very real. It is very powerful. We write down goals and dreams for our business, for our career, for our, how much money we want to make. But why wouldn't we have a list written down for our future spouse?
Right.
You know,
Oh, I
and
love
this
that.
is
I
the
was
person that you spend the rest of your life with. So
right.
everything
And by the
matters.
way, it's damn near, but I would be bold as to say impossible that any of those other goals are going to happen if that's not right. Like there's no way. I mean, you would have to compromise on all of them, because if you don't see the world, I mean, there's 8 billion different ways to view the world because there's 8 billion people, So with all of those different lenses, if
Yes.
the alignment isn't there, and obviously no two people are going to see it all the same because they have their nature, their nurture, they have all the things that have led up to this moment, but
Hmm.
there's got to be like a pretty solid Venn diagram, that center crossover is like
Yes.
as expansive and as like deep as possible. And you still have to have your identity. I'm kind of I don't know, annoyed by couples that are like, we are one person. And it's like, shut up. And they'll even use some biblical for that. Two shall become one. It's like, y'all sharing
Yeah.
a Facebook, you weirdos, like those couples that either you're completely weird or somebody cheated because normal people ain't got a group Facebook. Like, come on.
Drop reviews. Like when he stopped Facebook for a while and then didn't have any social media. So he would check, he would use my Facebook and check in on people once in a while. But I even suggested to him multiple times, do you want to just create one Facebook? He was like, hell no.
Hell no. Yep. Hell no. Oh, that is so funny. So, wow, what a journey. So, you had the other thing that's really wild is the amount of time. Like, that says a lot about you to stay in that marriage for 12 full years. But that's just one of your strengths, right? You don't quit. You find the silver lining. You probably also took on a lot of responsibility and guilt, so if you stepped outside of the marriage at one point, now there was this tarnishment and this, black check or whatever, this like
Yeah.
uh just record that you had, right? It would be like if you had a spotty record or whatever, and that will keep you in a bad relationship in this sort of ironic way because you did a bad thing and now you're trying to kind of like right that wrong.
Hmm.
And I think one of the hardest things for me relative to that was forgiving myself. I was really humbled when it just hit me, and it took years. It took me actually 7 years from the moment that but like from the time that I had an affair until the time that I forgave myself. It was 7 years. I was 25 when it happened, and then I was 32 when I finally forgave myself, which was only 4 years ago.
Wow.
And it was reminding myself of the gospel and going, wait. So Jesus didn't just die on the cross for me to be forgiven by others or for me to forgive others. You're saying
Right.
that this atonement covers me forgiving myself? And like when that finally registered, when that clocked for me, it was like a seal, something just closed, like this like wound. And there was still scar tissue and there were still issues, but like the thing that had been festering that was holding me back from breakthrough in business, from confidence in relationships, from having a voice and I might be labeled as an extrovert or always have been bold, but you can be loud or even funny and not have a voice. You can have a personality or a persona and not have a real like impact. So for me personally, it took a grueling 7 years to get to that place. And it sounds like at some point, I'll just ask you, did you forgive yourself and start to step into a new season and a new Christina?
Yeah, it took a really long time. I can't even begin to put years on it,
Yeah.
or the number of years on it. I tried to forgive myself many times, but I felt so much guilt and shame. It was a lot of shame that when Trav and I were engaged, so from the beginning of dating to the point that he proposed, it was 10 months, but he knew from the beginning that,
So
we were going to be
Travis. Yeah. Yeah.
married. Yes. Um, but during the few months of engagement that we had, actually, we went to this church to seek counseling
Hmm.
because we needed to be better. We needed to be better versions of ourselves. And that was when I learned about these strongholds that I still had. So he was in his men's circle and they were praying over him, and I was in my women's circle and they were praying over me, and they just kept asking me questions from childhood all the way up to where I am now, all the influences that I had in my life, things that I wasn't even aware of, living in Taiwan, going to kindergarten, which was a Buddhist school, and going to the temple with them because I was in school.
Right. What are
To
you
know
gonna
me
do?
better. They prayed over that, prayed over all of the things that I did, things that I was still ashamed of, but couldn't bring myself to forgive myself because
Hmm.
I was just that ashamed of myself.
Hmm.
But that was a stronghold, which then it would impact my future marriage, right? So they just prayed over everything. And through that, man, I came out a different person.
Amen.
I didn't think that it was going to be that impactful, but I came out lighter. I felt so refreshed. I felt like I was born again, all over again, a
Literally.
brand,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
So you
and
got new
that,
wineskins, you got new identity, you got a new
yeah,
literal like wow.
I
Isn't
did.
that interesting how you can accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Like you can like acknowledge it, and I'm not even saying from like a intellectual standpoint or historical standpoint, but that like sanctification process, that like go from your head to your heart, or even from your heart to like a
Yeah,
systematic, which we would call the Holy Spirit, or leading, letting the Holy Spirit lead, like that process and journey. Um, it's a metamorphosis. I mean, you really do kind of come out of a cocoon and you're like a beautiful
completely.
butterfly, and it's
Yes.
painful and it's like the diamonds, but then it
Yeah.
also like rears its head, right? It's never just like done. You're not like, and now I'm a new
Yeah.
person. It's like,
Yeah.
you're like a better person or a better creation, but you'll get back to a little like ratchet caterpillar for a day or a moment, and then you kind of have to be like, wait a second, this is not of my making, this is not who I am. um,
Yeah.
but that was
That
a real like
truly,
defining moment.
it was. I did not know what to expect because throughout my entire adult life, I just knew, like being a Christian, these were all the things that I knew. So I should do better. I should
Right.
know better. And these, I should do good works. But it's all about checking off a list,
Yeah.
which isn't true. And so up until that moment, I had never truly felt the spirit. I did not feel, I only knew
Mm.
completely different things. So from that moment on, I was 1,000% transformed. And from that moment, that was when we came together after we were both prayed over. And Trav looked at me and said, "What should we do? What do you want to do?"
That's
And then
awesome.
I was just like, "Well, we should just go and get married. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter our wedding plans,
Yeah.
even had a
Just do
wedding
the
planner,
damn thing.
do the damn thing." And so we ended up eloping.
Cool.
Yeah,
What year was
because
that, or what's your anniversary? When was that?
2018. So
Cool.
we eloped March 15th, 2018. Our wedding
Cool.
date should have been in October. Um, but at that point, because, drama with my side of the family, his family being fully accepting and they were all going to be there, um, it then became more about, it doesn't need to be
Right.
witnessed by everyone. It only mattered to us. So I just wanted to be married in a church because I was not married in a church before.
Right.
I wanted a wedding dress. My wedding dress was still in production then. I mean, it wasn't going to be ready until August. So, but it didn't matter because Monday, we filed for paperwork. Thursday, we got married in the same church that we got prayed over. I just found a dress that I had in my closet.
It's awesome.
And then, um, the, the ladies there that prayed over me, they said, "Christina, the desires of your heart is still there.
Hmm.
The desire of being able to wear your wedding dress is still there. It's just going to be even better than
Yeah.
what you originally imagined." So it was better. 2 years later, we ended up having our honeymoon in Vegas
Oh, that's awesome.
with my wedding dress, having wedding photos being taken, just walking around Vegas.
That's so fun.
So, yeah.
And is your handicapped dog, like, did the dog pass away, or do you still have the dog?
And yeah, he passed
Oh.
away about when was that? About a year or so later.
Hmm.
I was just devastated. But you know what, though? That dog was there for me when I was going through a divorce. So he was there for a reason. And I still firmly believe that dogs are like earthly guardian angels that are put on earth for us.
Right.
So we have Snoopy now,
Huh.
our little Maltese, and he
Sick.
is such a big protector.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it. So, man, what an amazing story. So now you're in a season where, from that really harming tax issue as a contractor, you took something painful and converted it into a business. Like we said, life leaves clues and success leaves clues. I know we're kind of rounding third base here in our conversation. In Eugene, Oregon, in less than 2 weeks, actually exactly 2 weeks from today, you will be on the stage as one of our featured speakers. And I remember talking to you. It's kind of a cool, just like moment to acknowledge the power of vision and putting things into words and action, because I can remember talking to you shortly after meeting you in Scottsdale, and I think I was just kind of like throwing it out there, like, hey, I'm like brainchilding this event right now.
Yeah.
And then I asked you something like, have you spoken at events before? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, cool. Like, what type of topics have you discussed? And I remember you saying, like, mainly it's been like kind of industry specific. Like, I've talked about like tax prep or, tax strategy. And I was like, very cool. I said, well, at this event, that's like the absolute last thing that we would be talking about. I said, if you had to choose a topic that was like leadership based or personal development based, and I remember you threw something out. What are you going to be talking about in a couple weeks at the My Core Collective? I'm excited to get a little prequel of your keynote.
Yeah. So it's mostly about balance and boundaries.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's very crucial to not just only professional growth, but personal growth. In anything that we do, you got to have your balance. You got to have your boundaries. You got to know when to sway to one side or the other side, so that you can truly focus. Um, there is really no such thing as balance in life,
Yeah.
because to do one thing well, you got to go to the extreme to do it well. It helps to have the support of family, of your spouse, right? It helps tremendously, because your personal life, it's like what you said earlier, your personal and your business, they're
Right.
intertwined. If you have personal issues, you can't focus on business at all. You got to deal with your personal, right?
Right.
When you have the support of a loving spouse who absolutely wants you to succeed in everything that you want to achieve, great. Even better if you can do it together, you know?
Right.
So one of the things that Trav and I do together is we have our online retail business together.
Cool.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, through that, that was where I experimented with these strategies, because I went through the whole painful journey of paying back taxes and making payment arrangements. And this was before IRS was fully online too. So that was
Right. Brutal.
traumatizing for me at that time. And so when we started our business together, I said, no way are we going to be owing in taxes. We're going to do everything better. So I experimented all of the strategies on ourselves. And we were able to get refunds every single year since we
Wow.
started, which was really cool. It's very powerful strategies, but it's all legal. It's all in the code book.
Right. It's all in the code.
Yeah. Um, but all this to say, in everything that we do, and the whole formulation of the talk is still being formed.
Yeah. Right. I love it.
I'm still I'm still organizing my thoughts, because there's so much in my head, but I'm still organizing and putting into a more digestive 30-minute track. Um, but all this to say, like, I've spoken to so many people that struggle with their boundaries. And it's not just professional boundaries, it's also personal boundaries. It's one or the other. And a lot of times, especially as business owners, we have a challenge setting boundaries with clients. We have
Right.
challenge setting boundaries with customers. When we're brand new, we are so eager to please and show them everything that we can do, especially as a service-based provider, that a lot of the times we forget that we have a sweet spot that we should excel
Yep.
in and grow in, right? So yeah, so it'll be on understanding that sometimes achieving those boundaries, our balance is going to be off.
Right.
So
Yeah. I concur to the fullest degree. I read the book The One Thing. Um, I don't know, 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago. Yep. And that was when counterbalance became hardwired in my thinking. And I remember even talking a little bit about this with you in Scottsdale. Like if I go to a place, I'm at that place. And some might call it like, oh, so you're being present. It's like, no, I don't really do present that well. I just am doing work. Like, this is work. And
yeah,
the work that I'm putting in is to connect with and learn from and get a lay of the land and ultimately decide, is this something I'm going to continue to do? And am I going to do it at like an extreme level? Because
right,
I'm sort of an extremist. Like, if I'm going to do a thing, like a normal person, they would go to
yeah,
Scottsdale, they would enjoy the pool, they would make a few connections, they might go golfing, they would eat the most wagyu that they've ever had the opportunity to eat because every restaurant was bougie and had that for, $72 appetizer or hors d'oeuvre. And
yeah,
they would go on and live their merry life.
right.
Not this guy. I'm like, you're the man, Trav. Christina, Aaron, and just connecting. And we had such a blast. I mean, if we were to try to relive, I was looking through our text and I was cracking up at that like document or that list of like crazy off the wall shit that we said and laughed about. And it was just like, oh my God, I forgot about that. I forgot about that. And it was so much fun. I mean, I can't wait till next year's. But then like to come out of that event and to say like, you know what? We got to do something. And I'm just stoked that like you and Aaron and a number of people that I had connected with there will not only be speaking at my core collective, but will be attending and then just sort of becoming part of this broader community. But yeah, that counterbalance is crucial because it's like you can't half-ass. You can't do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I'm personally like better at the business side of my life. I struggle with the counterbalance to that, and that's something that I'm like learning and now having to kind of retool and relearn as a single father with 4 kids. That's a new terrain. And if I were sitting in your seat being interviewed, I would get into the gory details of all that and how I was a single dad with 2 kids. And then I was a single dad with 3 kids. And now I'm a single dad with 4 kids because apparently the third time is not a charm. I think it was for you on your escape from that marriage. But I just commend you for sharing those really painful parts of your life that I know you've grown through. And I know that they're part of your story that led you to where you are now and are part of your broken road. But I don't take that lightly to hold that space with you. And I know you're going to absolutely rock it. The only homework I have for you is get Travis to Eugene. Book that damn flight. He's got to be there. He's going to love it. And I think even more, the world needs more Travis. And I want the people that are going to be at that event to be able to experience him unhinged because he is the man. So unhinged. I thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I'm super stoked to see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I am so excited to see you and be there in person with everyone, and I will work on that homework.
Good. We'll make it happen. Awesome. Thank you, Christina.
Take care.